Always a pleasure to welcome in our friend Nick Alberga to the show for some fantasy hockey talk delivered by DoorDash. There were a bunch of impressive individual performances last night. We've talked about McDavid, we've talked about Carter Hart, but now, Nick, I want to ask you about Brad Marchand. He returns to the lineup almost a month earlier than anyone expected. He scores twice, he adds an assist, he does Brad Marchand stuff. What are the fantasy implications of Marchand's early return to this Bruins lineup?
Yeah, ho hum, Ty. He didn't skip a beat, and thanks for having me as per usual, guys. I just think you look at the Boston Bruins in general. I think they've been the most surprising team out of the gates. I think everybody was ready to write the obituary on this team, hadn't seen them coached under Jim Montgomery, and they've been a revelation early on. I thought even Jeremy Swayman was phenomenal last night after two so-so efforts to start his campaign. From the Marchand perspective, I think he was trolling all of us, and kudos to anybody out there who was able to select Marchand. I think his ADP was around 117, if you can believe it. Only ends up missing, what, 6, 7, 8 games. So that's a fantastic value if you're able to snag him on your fantasy roster. Played 17-31, 4 shots on goal last night, a game-winning goal, 2 goals. Like, he was everywhere. And I think at the very least, this boosts, again, the value of a Jake DeBrusk, who will be sticking for the time being on that top line. And then on top of that, I wonder what that means for David Pastrnak, because David Krejci goes down last night. They trade Jack Studnicka to the Vancouver Canucks. So suddenly, the value's not there with Pastrnak where I was a couple games ago. But Marchand was tremendous last night. I wasn't shocked, though.
Yeah, I wasn't either. I mean, it doesn't phase him. Like, come back in the lineup, it's like he hasn't missed anything. It's a sign of a veteran player that's been there, done this. You look around the league, and injuries are really the one thing that can crush a team when it comes to fantasy. And you've got to be able to find replacements. I think of two players. You got Pavel Buchnevich with the St. Louis Blues. You got Ondrej Palat, the New Jersey Devils. If you've had either of those players on your fantasy roster, who do you need to be looking towards to try to replace them and get that all around performance?
Yeah, and I think you just have to roll with the punches, to your point. Certainly injuries are a part of the game in real life, and ditto for the conversation in fantasy. I think from the New Jersey perspective, you start with Ondrej Palat. I think ultimately when, injuries happen in the NHL from a fantasy perspective, you have to decipher in-house what that means for the roster, what that means for his roster position, and then externally. When you look at New Jersey, a guy I would have on my watch list right now is Fabian Zetterlund. Hopefully he's much better than Fabian Brunstrom, who played in this league a couple of years ago. But his first game the other night on the top line at 7 shots on goal. He has 1 assist in 2 games, 8 points in 14 career games. So at the very least, I would have Zetterlund on my watch list. He's been playing with Tatar and Hischier so far. As for St. Louis, I think you look at Jake Neighbors playing with Ryan O'Reilly and Braden Shen. I think there's a bit of value in terms of his deployment right now. And then I would look externally. How about Max Domi, right, guys? Like, we all expected Chicago just to be just the worst team ever. And so far, they've been a reputable opponent, even playing the Edmonton Oilers tough last night. Domi's got that attachment to Patrick Kane. And as long as Patrick Kane is playing with Max Domi, I think you have to give him a look, at least from a DFS standpoint. A 4-game point streak for Domi, 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points, a game-winning goal. Played 1954 last night. You love to see that for Max Domi trying to get his career back on track. Couple other names I would throw at you. Gabe Vilardi's got 6 goals in 9 games. Red hot to start his campaign. Kent Johnson, Connor Garland, and Andrei Kuzmenko are a couple other guys I would look at.
Nick, my approach to fantasy is I like being a little bit of an injury vulture. Like, when I see someone go down, even if they're not on my team, I want to be scooping up someone off the waiver wire and just kind of making sure I'm extra screwing the guys in my league. Miro Heiskanen situation, that's one I'm keeping an eye on right now. He's down for the Stars. Who should I be vulturing off the waiver wire here?
So the name internally is Nils Lundqvist. If you do remember preseason, the New York Rangers, the Dallas Stars made a trade. I think anytime Jim Nill is a part of a trade, the savant himself, the draft himself, I think you have to look at it. And what I've seen from Lundqvist so far is pretty appetizing. And we don't know just yet the extent of the injury to Heiskanen, but I think you're looking for PP1 QB capabilities, and Lundqvist certainly has that. Picks up an assist last night. Jake Ottinger's been a phenomenal story, as you know, Mike, so far in the season. I think, quite honestly, your best look is going to be externally. I've really, really liked what Brandon Montour has brought to the table for the Florida Panthers, filling in for Aaron Ekblad. I thought he was a beast last night, although it's been a bit of a struggle and a work in progress for Florida early on, which we expected. But 4 points in the last 4 for Montour. Matt Grzelcyk is another guy with the Boston Bruins, especially with Charlie McAvoy still not playing games. He's the QB on PP1. You get that attachment. You get the exposure to 63. Pasternak, Bergeron, the list goes on and on. So Grzelcyk's another guy I would take a flyer on right now. I would also take a watch list look at David Jiricek, expected to make his NHL debut tonight for the Columbus Blue Jacket. The pedigree is there, 6th overall in 2022. He has 4 points in 5 AHL games so far this season, and they're desperate, of course, with the injury to Adam Boqvist. And a couple other names, Ryan Pulock and Brady Shea. It's a bit harder to find value right now in the back end in fantasy hockey.
This has been Fantasy Hockey Talk, delivered by DoorDash, where you can use the promo code GameDay25, gets you 25% off and no delivery fees on your first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app. Nick, enjoy the weekend of NHL games, and thanks for doing this.
I'm hungry. I'm going to do that right now. Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
That way, Muzzy.